Erin, it is so good to see you.
Good to see you too, Hen.
Um, well, I hope you're still going to say that in a minute. Um, because what I wanted to talk about today is probably your least favorite part of CellProfiler.
Oh no,
It's the
not names
input
and types.
modules.
Not names and
Yeah.
types. No, don't make
Yeah.
me work on names and okay, you can do the names and types. I'll just
hmm
sit here and look cute. And
You will look absolutely cute, and I know that you know all this stuff, but it's definitely, I think, the hardest part of CellProfiler. Would you agree?
absolutely, I still get very frustrated and struggle with names and types, which is really silly because I do actually know how to use it at this point in time. But I
hmm
set, from my first week in lab, I established an adversarial relationship with names and types, and 6+ years later, I won't let it go. I don't like that module.
Well, you don't have to like it, but unfortunately, if you want to use Cell Profiler, you either need to know how to sort of do some scripting or you do need to understand it. So I'll do a quick overview video today and point you at a much longer, really comprehensive resource that the team has put together. But I just want to sort of talk about what this is, why it exists, why it's hard, and how you can learn to sort of make things make sense.
Sounds great.
All right. So ultimately, the problem that we're trying to solve is this. Everybody's experiment looks super different. I know even just my own experiments in grad school, like some of them were time lapse, some of them weren't. Some of them had multiple Z-planes, some of them didn't. They came from different microscopes that saved their files out in different ways. Some of the microscopes I manually typed out the file name each time. Some of them it was exported automatically. Sometimes all of the images were one file, sometimes each image was a file. There's like a gajillion ways for your data to be arranged on your hard drive. Um, and the good news is CellProfiler can handle all of those things. The bad news is CellProfiler is not psychic. So you need to actually tell CellProfiler what you're doing.
I mean, can we add that? I mean, so maybe that's not in the Cell Profiler 5
Mhm.
work, path. But like Cell Profiler 6, can we add in psychic abilities so that we don't have to use
You know,
type?
I think that there's a thing we can do, and one of the things that we're hoping will be in future versions of Cell Profiler is like a little wizard that will help guide you to like the best possible configurations. Um, but if everybody's experiment was the same, this would be simple, but not everybody's experiment is always the same.
Yeah.
And even the same person day to day might, put a space instead of an underscore or a dash in their file name. And Cell Profiler can handle that if it knows to, but it has no way to know what's going on in your brain. Like maybe dash versus space is super important. So you just have to kind of be kind to it and tell it, you know, what it should pay attention to and what it shouldn't.
Makes sense.
Um, so before I get too far into it, what I want to say is all of the examples I'm going to show here today are from this fantastic tutorial that several current and former members of the lab put together. If you are a video person, you might enjoy the video version of this tutorial with some people you might recognize. This is on our Center for Open Bioimage Analysis, or COBA, YouTube channel, and we'll make sure to drop the link in the show notes. If you, like me, are a written information person, you might enjoy the written version of this. And you can find both of these linked on the Cell Profiler tutorials page, which is tutorials.cellprofiler.org. So I'm not going to do every single thing because, as you can see, this original thing is an hour, though it is guided into chapters so that you can see exactly, okay, I know that I have a particular like thing that I want to be able to show how to do. You can guide yourself to the right chapter. Now, I'm not going to reproduce the whole hour, but I'm just going to give you a quick tour of the input modules and maybe pick one or two that I think are kind of super important. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
Um, yeah. So these are CellProfiler's input modules. And if I just load up the welcome screen so that I can give a sort of quick example, um, those of you who watch the podcast regularly are probably pretty familiar at this point with the CellProfiler example fly welcome screen pipeline. But there are four main input modules. Two of them are mandatory, and two of them are totally optional. Um, I'll talk about the mandatory ones first. One of them is the images module. The images module is not so bad. You give it images. Um, if you want to exclude some files, you can add some filters here. So you can say like, oh, I've actually got TIFFs and PNGs in there, but I only want you to look at the TIFFs, not the PNGs. You can put some filters in, but otherwise, this is just a place to bring files. It's not so bad.
And you can even just drag and drop. Love me a
Mhm.
good drag and drop.
Oh yeah. The other mandatory one is Erin's nemesis, is the names and types module. So this is where you do the bookkeeping to tell Cell Profiler what it should be there and how to find it. So in our original thing here, we have a file name that ends in d.tiff, f.tiff, and r.tiff. So I believe this is like dappy fitzy rhotamine. So in our names and types module, we tell Cell Profiler we've got three things, and if I had more, I could just keep adding more with this add another image or by duplicating an existing entry. And I tell it that I've got three channels here. I've got one that I want to call Orig Blue. I can call it pretty much anything as long as it's only ASCII characters, letters and numbers, and doesn't start with a number. It has to start with a letter for reasons. um,
I've been burnt by that one before too.
as have I. Um, and files that are blue end in d.tiff, files that are green end in f.tiff, and files that are red end in r.tiff. Not so scary.
Not so scary. And just to your point of you can name it almost anything. For example, a ridge blue, we might name like Dappy. To say like this is the stain that we used. We might name
Mhm.
it DNA because that is what we're visualizing with the Dappy. We might name it nucleus because that is the structure that we expect to be picking out of that channel, that image. And so one of the cool things about biology is there's all sorts of ways to describe your experiment, but also maybe one of the hard things about sort of standardizing between experiments. So often we actually have, I'm not sure if we even have, it's this sort of like unwritten naming system that we use in lab. For example, here you see we named all of these starting with orig. So any workflow we have where we're going to be modifying the images in any way, the input image that we bring in, we will name orig. And then, once we like if we apply a correction to it, we will then say the corrected image is just the um, you know,
Like courage is it gets cropped, it gets called crop.
yeah, yeah. And so we'll have a naming system to sort of help track that path. And so
Mhm.
you might want to think about in your experiments standardizing so that you can then more easily share your pipeline from day to day, from colleague to colleague, and not have to rename everything every time.
Yeah. Sounds like you're advocating for metadata tracking. Is
Oh my
that, am I?
gosh. I was trying not to say it, but metadata. Yes. That's really what I want.
Mhm.
Because trying not to take us down a deep rabbit hole on metadata. Just
Mhm.
like dipping our toes in the edge of it so as not to thoroughly distract from what you were actually trying to say.
Yeah. No, it's a very good point. And people name things all kinds of things. And generally speaking, we let you name things whatever you want within reason. Just your pipeline should be useful for you. But it'll be most useful for you if it gives you hints when you go to look for things later, what everything actually is. So here this is correctly set up. So if I hit update, what this will show me is that I started with 9 images, but actually those are 3 sets of 3. And here are my 3 rows where Under the blue, it has my d.tiffs. Under the green, it has the f.tiffs that match. And under red, it has the same thing. Um, if I had messed this up, if I said that this should be t.tiff, Cell Profiler is going to yell at me and say, I can't find that. I don't know what that is. Um, if I called it d.tiff for two of them, it's going to let me do it. But so you have to be careful about what you're doing. Um, it's really important because otherwise you might be like, ooh, there's a change between my green and my red. That isn't actually a change between green and red, it's a change between green and blue. So the downside of all of this is like this is a place to be really pedantic and really careful. Um, it's good to do sanity checks when you're looking through these. Especially what I would say is if you have a ton of files, um, scroll down to the very bottom of this list. Here we only have 3 images, so they match up. But if I had 500 of each, if the naming scheme isn't perfect, or maybe like one file got corrupted and got deleted, you might actually then start getting some of them off by one. So like I have 500 blue images, 500 green images, 499 red. And if the last red one is missing, that's fine. But if it's one in the middle, unless you're careful, they can be off. And so checking these, especially scrolling all the way to the bottom, always a good idea. You can work around that to some degree if you've used metadata. So this is the one of the two optional modules where you can take information that is from your file and sort of read it. Might be a few different cases you'd want to do that. If you have information that's in the file headers or you have a big container file, like some of the commercial scopes like Nikon, Leica, Zeiss, will put all of your data into one big mega file. The metadata module will help you get all of that data out and tell Cell Profiler this isn't one file. It's actually, 50 fields of view, each of which has 6 channels. It might be that you want to bring in information from a file. So if your data, if you have a spreadsheet somewhere that says what everything is treated with, and you want to add that information to your files right there in Cell Profiler, so you can't accidentally lose that spreadsheet later and accidentally like not remember what's in all of your data, you can do that. Or just if you want Cell Profiler to understand what is in your data in terms of things like what plate is it, what well is it. Um, uh, it uses a thing called regular expressions, which look super scary. I think if this scares you, you don't have to do it. I will say Cell Profiler has a guesser. I don't know if the guesser works on this image. I probably should have checked that before we. Nope. So the guesser doesn't work on this image, but it does have a guesser that if you have a lot of common microscope formats, Cell Profiler can just help you figure out. But like all modules in Cell Profiler, the metadata module has a lot of help in this help button, the question mark button, the most important button in Cell Profiler, the help button. And some of the links that are in here will include links to resources to like how do you figure these sorts of things out. And here in the help for the regular expression thing, I think it's in there. We have links to things. If you also just Google, this is also something where probably ChatGPT or another LLM can help you figure this out, though, as always, be careful with those and make sure what it's telling you makes sense. But if I had done this, and I can just write a quick regular expression here, and say that this goes, and I didn't just, I wasn't born knowing how to do this. It just took a little bit of time to figure out. But you too can eventually, even if you've not taken like professional coding classes or anything, learn how to do this.
I can second that because when I started in the lab over 6 years ago, I had to make Beth drop into a Zoom call with me every single time that I was trying to, change the regex for my pipelines, but with some practice, pretty quickly got able to do it most of the time myself. It is not entirely unintuitive once you get used to it. Um, but then also, uh, it can do quite complicated things that
Mhm.
are still beyond my abilities.
Mhm.
But you know,
But now what you can hopefully see is like there's something called plate that it's matching to this. There's something that I've called here position that it's matching to this, and something I've called channel number, which I should probably rename to channel name. That's just what it was already called. Um, and so in um, in the names and types module, if I was worried about that case of, oh, maybe one of my things dropped and I'm not sure where it is, if I've made metadata, I can use the metadata to actually do the matching. And
mhm.
I can say, make sure that if you have things that they all have the same position. That was that pause thing that I put in. Um, and I should still get the same three things out here, which I did before. But even if I get rid of one of the things from the first image set, which would ordinarily screw me up, now if I go here, CellProfiler is going to warn me that it's not finding one of the things it thinks it should find, but it makes two image sets that are right. If I switch back to order-based matching, this has two going with 76 going with two, and so this is wrong.
Yes.
So doing the metadata, even if it's a little hard and scary, can help. Um, the last optional module is called groups. It's not that common to need this one. So for example, basically it's if you care about which images get processed with which other images. So if it's like, I want to do segmentation and measurement, you probably don't care if like in what order your images get processed. But if you're doing, say, Z projection, you want all of your Z planes to get processed together, all of the ones from movie one, but then not with any of the ones from movie two. So if there's any sort of associations, so time-lapse movies or making a plate-based image correction thing or doing a Z projection, the group module can be helpful. And so I'll actually quick demonstrate that one. Um, I believe that's 3D example one, but let me just check because I didn't memorize that. um, yeah, I think that's 3D example one, but I guess we'll find out. And yes, there's notes here in a lot of this in terms of like where the data's from and stuff, just to try to make it friendly. Um, no, it's probably in the groups one. Yeah. Um, mm,
So while you're loading that in, I will say we also have an
mm,
earlier Ask Erin, Dear Beth episode that introduces using load data CSVs. So
mhm,
that is an alternative way. If you never want to deal with names and types, even though Beth has so nicely demonstrated that it's really not that bad and Erin just has a chip on her shoulder. If if you still have that chip on your shoulder, for example, go check out our earlier episode of Ask Erin Dear Beth about load data CSVs and passing load data information into CellProfiler as an alternative way of that doesn't require using these input modules.
mhm. Uh, hmm. Uh, So this wasn't the thing that I was expecting it to be. But considering my cell profiler's drag and drop seems to be on the fritz, we'll pretend that it is. Um, so um, here I have oh, I need to bring in a second one. Um, um, I wish my drag and drop wasn't acting broken today, because that makes all of this much less fun to demo. Um, hmm. There we go. That multiple ways to do everything in CellProfiler. So what I now have here is I have 42 images from two different folders, and they're labeled sort of 0 to 21 in each one. Um, but they have different folder names. And so in the metadata module here, we actually extracted the folder name. So CellProfiler can do things by folder arrangement if that's what works for you. Um, so depending on what I wanted to do here, I have two different groups, and I could use those groups to do something like add um, the make projection module, and I could project across my groups over time.
Mm.
So if I hit step, um, and I just keep going, I can just keep making a projection that sort of covers the whole thing. But if I ask CellProfiler to show me what's in this image set, it's never going to show me anything that's sequence 2. It's only going to show me things from sequence 1, so I could never actually accidentally put the things from two different images together.
Ah, nice.
Mhm. Um, and so there's a lot of different things we can do with these input modules because there's a lot of different things you can do with biology. And I definitely recommend that if you're having trouble getting data into CellProfiler, to use these resources. Come to the imaging platform office hours, visit the image.sc forum. Once you have your data into CellProfiler, actually a lot of stuff gets easier, but getting the data in can be the hard part. That's why we have lots and lots of resources, and hopefully you'll find them and get some great data made.
Awesome. Well, thank you for
Anything else
that.
you would add, Erin?
No, I mean, again, we'll just emphasize it's me and my own personal chip on the shoulder. But I think you did a great job of illustrating like the power behind names and types. And I think especially showing that Cell Profiler, we have tons of guardrails built into Cell Profiler, that if you know how to use them, by setting the right settings, using metadata to make sure your image is matched, using grouping to make sure you're not uh, again ma working on the wrong set of images, so you've only got the subset that you want. Like there are there are all sorts of guardrails, and learning how to use them to make sure that your pipeline does what you want, it is a little bit of a learning curve, but it's super powerful when you do learn it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for hanging in there with me. I hope that was okay.
It was okay because you were here with me, Beth.
Great. See you later.
Bye.